Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about Warrior 1. The difference between Warrior 1 and Warrior 2, Warrior 1, your hips are facing both forward as in crescent lunge, as opposed to Warrior 2, where your hips are externally opened to the side of the mat. So some people find it easy to get from crescent lunge into Warrior 1 immediately, and some people find it easier to get from crescent lunge into Warrior 2 easier. So today we're going to talk about Warrior 1, and then you are going to choose which transition works best for you. So we can come into it from two ways, and we're going to do both of them, obviously. From a more vertical way, you would start, for example, in your mountain pose, again, getting ready to go into something else, either a sun salutation or getting into your lunge or something. But you start off with your hips facing forward. So you can simply take a step back. So unlike in crescent lunge, when you take a step back and your back heel is uplifted, in Warrior 1, when you take your step back, you should be able to drop your back heel. Yes? So a lot of things come into play here. Depending on your ankle mobility, depending on your hip mobility, you might find that having those train track feet are going to help you here. Some of you might find something along the idea of a very narrow train track, almost tightrope, is going to work for you if you have the mobility in your ankles. What you are looking for is keeping both of your hip bones facing forward. You're looking to still keep that front lunge, knee over ankle, as best as you can. And very similar to Warrior 2, you don't want that back thigh and knee to collapse. You want to definitely push into that outer edge. You're still keeping your foot flat, but you're pushing into that outer edge so that you can lift the thigh while still keeping those hips forward. So your chest is forward, your hips are forward, back thigh is lifting, front lunge is as best as you can. And again, you're going to pick your arms. Stepping back into your Warrior 1, you might find that it's a balance issue, stepping back into the unknown where you can't see, where you need your hands here. So you might start on your waist, get into your leg position. You're feeling pretty strong, pretty sturdy. And then you might notice, oh, I can actually lift up my hands. Again, the problem you should be aware of is as you lift your hands, do you scrunch up your shoulders? Do you collapse into those turtlenecks? So the arms are only going up if you can still keep everything open. Your spine in your neutral position. Is your breath still open? If raising my arms is going to compromise my breath, I'm not going to use my arms just yet. I'm going to work on leg. I can work on hands on my hips. And I'm still working all the benefits of Warrior 1 in the legs. I'm just not getting the shoulder rotation just yet. And again, I can add that in later. Yeah? So Warrior 1, your main point is chest, hips facing forward. And your back heel is down. So it's different from crescent lunge because in crescent lunge your back heel is lifted. Yes, your hips and your chest are facing forward, but the heel is the difference. So crescent, heel is lifted, back heel. Warrior 1, back heel is down. Yeah? Now, let's say, for example, we're coming into Warrior 1 from our lunge position. So let's say I have my blocks here, and let's say we're doing whatever, something in our flow. And we're at a progression where, okay, I'm still working my lunge with my back knee down. So very similar to what I said about transitioning into Warrior 2 or transitioning into Warrior 3, if you're transitioning from the back knee down, you do have to lift the back knee. It's very simple. Torquing, turning on that knee as it's down, it's going to be uncomfortable. Because if you have your back knee down, that pretty much means there's something going on with your back knee. It's uncomfortable. It's not strong enough. So you don't want to add any injury to it. Unfortunately, you have to add a little bit of work as you progress. So you might be doing all of the things up to now with your low lunge, but in our flow as we transition, you'll have to lift that back knee. So I'm going to use my blocks again as example because I'm going to be a little lazy. So let's say we were stepping into our Warrior 1. So you'll see with my lunge position, my back heel is lifted. And for most people, that means the stance is pretty long. The distance here is pretty long. You might be able to simply drop that heel and keep everything in an alignment. And you can lift your torso and be fine. If you'll notice, for me, my back heel isn't quite down. I have very tight ankles. So for me to transition just from crescent lunge, just to drop my heel down, it doesn't work for me. I have to make this modification. So from my crescent lunge, if I know I'm going into Warrior 1, I actually do have to shorten my stance so that I can drop that heel. So right away, you're probably going to feel a stretch in the back of your ankle, in your Achilles. Again, I'd like to try to keep the hips facing forward as best as I can. There might be a little bit of an outward turning, but you're trying to keep the chest and hips still facing forward. The back heel is down. That back thigh you're trying to lift, so don't allow it to fall, collapse down. Your front lunge is still trying to be that lunge. And then, again, very similar to runner's lunge, you're going to leave the floor, leave the blocks, and you're going to lift your torso. And again, you're trying to get those shoulders over your hips. So it's not that runner's lunge position. I want to keep going. I want to keep going. I want to keep going to try to line up the shoulders over the hips as best as I can. And again, for many of you, very similar to me, it's that back ankle that's going to be a problem. So to help, you might have to, you can't really see from my block, I might have to take a slightly wider train track approach to get into a nice Warrior 1. So again, these are all these little modifications that I need. I have tight hips, I have tight ankles. I have to take those little movements to get that neutral spine alignment. Now, when I go back, let's say I was transitioning back into my crescent lunge. From my Warrior 1, which works for me right this second, for me to lift my heel back up into crescent lunge, yes, I've lifted my heel, but my stance is too short. I know that I need a longer stance in my crescent lunge. One day, I'll be able to just Warrior 1 crescent lunge. I don't know if you noticed, but for me to get my heel back down there, I had to open up my hips. In Warrior 1, you want the hips, chest facing forward. Same as crescent. But because of my ankle mobility, I have to change my stance. I have to make it longer. You might be lucky enough that you do not have to change this leg distance. you might be able to be in your Warrior One, just lift and be in your perfect crescent lunge. For me, if you notice right now, my back knee is bent, which indicates to me that my stance is too short. I need maybe here. That's my crescent lunge at this moment. But if I just dropped my heel to try to get into Warrior One, my hips just went too much open. So this is not ideal Warrior One for me. I have to change my stance. Yeah. Warrior One for me, not the easiest pose. Seems so easy. Just drop the heel. How hard can it be? For me, it's very tight. Hips are tight, ankles are tight. So the transition from lunge to Warrior One is not my favorite because I'm not good at it yet. You might notice transition from crescent to Warrior One is very easy. You just drop the heel, no problem. And then you open up into Warrior Two, no problem. But if you have tightness here in your body, here in your ankles, here and there, you're going to notice that the modifications, again, you're going to have to pick and choose. For the arms, very similar to our other. In your crescent lunge, in your Warrior One, in your Warrior Two, again, if the arms overhead is too much for you, keep them down here. You might even be working here. So in Warrior One, very similar to crescent lunge, I could have my hips, hands on hips. I can maybe work on a nice wide arm. Maybe one day I can make those palms come a little bit closer to each other. But again, not at the compromise of getting all into here. This is too much for me. I've scrunched up. So I need something wider so that I can open up. So again, that's going to change day to day depending on how you feel. All those variables that come into play. Whatever it is, that's what it is. So takeaway from Warrior One. Back heel is down. Hips, chest, facing forward. Lunge still the same. Chest open, neutral spine, shoulders over hips as best as you can. Head kind of even on the shoulders. It's not too much forward, not too much back. We're not really trying to open up into a back bend just yet. Keep everything stacked up. We're going to get into those more openers soon, but just start working on adding these into your toolbox. So that's a little bit about Warrior One, and hopefully we can start incorporating that into our flow. So that's it for now, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.